I want to look at the woman coming out of the wilderness. Wilderness can be quite challenging to us as believers. And that's what the Lord did with Israel. He would not take them through the more fertile area, the shortest route to get to out of Egypt. He took them by the wilderness. And it seems as if at first they would go the short route, but in actuality, that wasn't a good idea. And so the wilderness is not always always a comfortable thing for us to deal with, but I believe it's mentioned several times here in the psalm. Who is this that cometh out of the wilderness? It says in that verse number 6. Mm-hmm. Who is this that cometh up from the wilderness?
Verse 5.
Yeah, verse 5, yes. Leaning on her beloved. I praise thee up under the apple tree. There thy mother brought thee forth. There she brought thee forth that bare thee. It's a chronological story about someone's life. And God knows how to do that. I don't know if you know anything about the wilderness, Sister Lala, but you might share your ideas on what you know about the wilderness, because that's what we see. She's coming up out of the wilderness. And you know what she's doing? She's leaning. And what would it take for you to lean on a person? If you leaned on, what do you think if you had to lean on someone? I'm not going to mention any names. But it's something when you have that confidence in a difficult situation for you to, in turn, use them as someone to hold you up, because if you're leaning on someone, they're basically holding you up. They're not letting you fall. They're helping you to walk stably, to be stable. It's also can be a comfort. And because of the area that you've come out of, and the wilderness is an area that does not seem to be a place of vegetation. It's a place that's sparse and usually doesn't have much water. And so something when you can come out of the situation of Brother Jamo and yet be in the superlative role, because that's what we see here. Because it's been difficult for me to see the perfection when you see the flaws, you see the mistakes, when you see the error. And rest assured, there's not a righteous man that sinneth not. The Bible said, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And yet he took Elijah. Yet the man Enoch found favor with God, and he escaped death. And so we can escape death likewise, even though we have seen our flaws, our mistakes, our errors. And that's what I'm looking at, the superb view of God as he sees you in your flaws, as he sees you in your shortcomings. Because if I had a subject to give you tonight, let me write it on the board. I would say, I don't like this board, but the Lord said, "You will." It's calm. I want you to know this is a God-given message tonight, lesson. It wasn't nowhere in my mind. I just want you to know this is Start doing it. It can come down, it can come through your dilemma. And I want to talk about this. I'm putting this in with the perfect view of the view of the song, because this is a perfect song. And I want to look at it through this. Oh. Right over here. Let's look at the song tonight, Through Your Rebellion. I couldn't hardly see God giving you a perfect song. Well, I can see it, but then we don't always see God and how he does. His mind is so far above us. And it's difficult sometimes to see God in your wrong. And that's what I've been learning, to see God and to continue to walk with God and not rebel against him in my wrong. Because you said you've been a rebel, Vince. God ever call you a rebel? Ooh. Said you've been rebellious. And I couldn't say, but I'm sorry. Because we have been rebelling against God. We've been rebelling against him through Adam. And he's been saving us down through the centuries. Even though we've been rebellious of his way and his thoughts, because they are as far away from us as earth is to heaven. So I want to look at the idea of rebellion. And we first see it, Brother J-Mo. Where do we first see rebellion at, Sister Lala? Has Cameron ever rebelled against your instructions? How could this little nice little son called Cameron rebel against his sweet mother's instructions? And remember, if we rebel against God, Brother James, you know what he brings on? Jealousy. Because his name is jealous. Okay. Anytime you rebel against God, he like to show you the jealousy coming. That's what we see in our text. Why did they come up with this text? Rebellion is as this is cruel. Rebellion, it puts it in. I'll get it here in a minute. Don't push me. He said, 7 years to seal upon thine arm. Seal upon thine heart, rather. Seal upon thine arm. Love is strong as death, and jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which has the most vehement flame. I wonder how they get that idea, where they come from. But it had to come out of their experience. And understanding God's jealousy comes out of our rebellion. Because anytime you rebel against God, Brother Jimo, you go in a different direction. Have ever God told you to go right and you went left?
Knowing that you were going left.
Knowing that you were going left, he told you to go what? Right. How did God stop the Apostle Paul from going left when he wanted to go he didn't want to go right?
Put him in chains. Put him in chains.
Before he put him in chains. How did God stop the Apostle Peter from rebelling against what he wanted him to do? Because we're not always in agreement with what God wants us to do. And therefore we set ourselves up to feel his jealousy. Because he's very jealous. Has anybody ever showed you that jealousy? Has anybody ever showed you that jealousy? But what are you doing with her? It can be a little possessive. It can show They say jealousy is a state of ill will ranging even to anger based on a perceived advantage or a desire for exclusivity in a relationship. When your relationship with God is not exclusive and you got somebody else you're paying attention to, he can show you his rage. He can show you his jealousy. And Brother Jim, I really think that the wilderness experience was God's jealousy.
Okay.
I'm not going to help you. I see that.
What about the slavery that came before?
Well, the slavery, going down into Egypt was a means of multiplication.
So that wasn't
Okay. And he brought them down there to multiply them as a nation because he had already given them a promise. Your seed is going to be as the sands of the sea. We don't always like the way he chose to do it.
But it wasn't cruel.
It wasn't cruel, no. It became cruel for them under the hard taskmaster. When your enemy finds out the will of God, he's going to do everything he can to try to stop him. Okay. So we must know that in following God, you're going to come up against an enemy. But our idea is to continue to walk with God. And when they got out in the wilderness, everybody didn't walk with him, so they had to die. The flesh had to die. If you're going to walk with God, and especially in the wilderness areas of your life, the flesh has to die to see the power of God. We don't always understand why we are going the way we are going. Okay. And that can be when we have an ARDOR, ardor, is wisdom. ARDOR. Put that word up on the road. It's all connected with jealousy. Are you kind of jealous? Well, not really. Because when we're jealous, we're saying that I'm not the only one in your life. And that can tick God off when he's supposed to be, thou shalt have no other God, what? Before you. What does it say, Rick?
Enthusiasm or passion.
Passion. And when you do not have the enthusiasm or passion, that's all it is. That's all you have there.
Yeah.
Enthusiasm or passion. When that enthusiasm or passion isn't directed toward God, then he can get upset. And he can get a little. And you know what that is in your relationship with people. Those who love you. When you don't think you get what you should, you can be kind of cruel. In other words, jealousy begins to what? Rise. Okay. And we see that in this Song of Songs. And so we've got to know how to, in turn, sing the song. And we realize that God is bringing us through a wilderness. And the wilderness speaks of his jealousy. And that says something about me. I don't want to think I've been rebellious. Okay? I don't want to think that I have turned my attention and went in another direction. Because when we think of a rebellion, we think of going in a different pathway. Okay? And to turn away from his advice. Okay? And we have done that. And it is proven when he was in the garden, they turned away from him. Because we usually turn away from God sometimes when the road gets rough and the going gets tough and the hills are hard to climb. We lose faith in God. And I've come to the understanding lately, Brother Jimo, that God can save me no matter what's going on in my life. And I do not have to give up hope just because I don't want to acknowledge to anyone else my problem. Because we don't like people being nosy. Right. And people being nosy about your condition. So you more than likely keep it to yourself. And when he told you, now if you acknowledge your sin, I'm faithful and just to forgive you and to cleanse you from all unrighteousness, but we can be rebellious. Okay, and rebellious, and I'm not going in the direction that God would have me to go in. So he gets jealous and says, oh, you don't believe what I told you. Well, I'm going to put you in a wilderness. And you'll learn not to rebel against me. Because he can be cruel. Because jealousy is cruel as a what? And what will the grave do to you? The grave will hold you. Okay. And jealousy will hold you until you come to your senses. I know y'all don't like that today. I didn't plan to go this way.
Well, you're setting us up for starting conversation.
I said, to turn aside, to depart from what you know God has commanded you to. Okay? So he said, now, don't go out there. And you know what the boy did? They went out there and the Moabites vexed them. And you know what they did when they got vexed? What did they turn to? And Phinehas had to stop the rage of God.
Oh.
No, the Moabites, wasn't the Moabites? And he took the gal into the camp.
Oh, yeah.
And she was of royal blood, I believe. And he had to go and be courageous to stop the rage of God. Because he brought her right into the camp. And he told them, don't leave the heathen folk alone. Don't bother them unsaved people. We don't believe that. We go against God. You know, he told them, if you go, not to unsaved.
But it was a very brazen act. I mean, the fact that he brought this gal in front of everybody, if he had, tried to at least be a little discreet.
Can you be discreet with disobedience?
Usually.
Can you be discreet with rebellion?
It's going to come out.
Oh, no. You can't sin. You can't be discreet. Sin. They should have obeyed God and did what he said, leave the heathen. But they said, well, they couldn't get them militarily, so they got them sexually. Okay? Okay. They got them sexually, and that caused them to lose sight of what God has said. So he had to turn it into that rebellion into cruelty, jealousy. Okay. Anytime there's jealousy around, something ain't right. That's why they say when a man gets jealous about his wife, what does the scripture say? What does it say about how they deal with it?
Take her to the temple.
Take him to the temple, what do he have to do?
Make her drink water.
Make her drink the water and put the dust from the
Floor.
and make her drink it. If she didn't have sex with a man, then I said, the Lord, if he was wrong,
That's all for me.
that's why jealousy can be what?
Cruel.
Cruel. Well, what are you going to do about him if he's wrong? So jealousy can be what? Cruel.
Would you say that's
What are you doing looking at him like that for?
Would you say that's the hardness of our hearts, the cruelty? Because he said, I gave you a bill of divorcement, or you just mean.
Yeah, we're mean. Yeah. We can be mean. And that's rebellion against what God has told us.
Have mercy.
Just be merciful, be kind, help one another. But now she's leaning on her beloved. She's coming out of the what? Wilderness. Okay. Leaning on her beloved. And that, my brothers and sisters, is where you go in the wilderness, something has driven you there. Okay? You go in the wilderness is because you have in turn turned aside and you made what they call a linear move. Okay. From what God has asked of you to do. Was that the door? And so it's something to go aside from what God has told you to do. And that's what I'm trying to say. And it's difficult for us to quite get it when we don't quite. Oh, that's sister. It's difficult for us kind of to understand it when we don't quite understand what God is doing. Okay. Because God will in turn chasten us. God will in turn correct us. And correcting us is sometimes the wilderness experience. Because he did that to Israel, taking him through the wilderness, took him through all kinds of trials and tests. No food out there, and they stopped fussing and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Moses went up in the mountains and he's gone and went into idolatry. Yeah. So the wilderness speaks of a trial and a test. Okay. And it shows you the jealousy of God. Hey, Moses, step aside. I'm going to get rid of them and I'll raise up a nation out of you. And someone had to plead their call. And so when we look at this text, we're looking at rebellion. We're looking at jealousy. And children can be jealous. And they're assured by their reaction. Because jealousy can readily be seen in attitude. Can you say amen? Why aren't you going to say something? You don't want to speak. You go straight to your room. You're showing the anger. And it can be a passion. Okay? Strong desire. That means that we have turned away from what God has told us to do, because he told us to suffer to be so. You know what he told John the Baptist? And Lord, I have need to be baptized. And he said, suffer it to what? So we don't want to suffer it to be so. And therefore we're not very, very kind. Because he said, with loving kindness have I drawn you. And so we're looking at the wilderness experience, and the wilderness experience does not always speak of plush living. It's a trial. It's a test to go through a wilderness existence. We see that with the children of Israel. In the 8th verse, in this Song of Solomon, we're in the Song of Solomon, sister, and we're in chapter number 8. That's the last chapter. And he says to the, who is this that cometh up? And you know, when we say up, you remember what they said about Judah. What did they say about Judah when he left his brother? The Bible said Judah went down from his brother. So, he was on the way down. Something when you go up. There's another thing when you go down. They just tried to they got rid of Joseph, and they had depression. And so the Bible said he went down. And the first thing he meets was a woman. And we think sex will answer every problem. Okay? And so he meets this girl, Shua, and they have 3 children. But it's not going to, 2 of them will work no good. Okay? But really, the woman that was the gal of Tamar. So things can bring you down. And the second, when something brings you down, and how do we react when things bring us down? Okay. Well, you have to lean on God. You have to trust in God, because you're going to go through something when jealousy arises. Because people can get what? Jealous. You know what jealousy is? Have you ever been jealous? It works on your what? When the work ain't here yet. What's taking us so long? Where you been? You know, it can create a whole lot of sentiments that doesn't speak of peace. Okay. And yet this is a song of songs. In other words, God can get you through it. God can get you over it. God can help you understand your jealous rage. Because jealousy is the rage of a man. The Bible says that.
So women don't get
Huh?
Women get jealous.
Oh, yeah, they get jealous too. Because Ahab's wife, what's her name? Jezebel? Wasn't she in a rage? Don't you worry about it. I'll get the vineyard for you. Because he was jealous for Nabal's vineyard.
But you can't be jealous for something that's not yours.
Then you can have a strong desire for something that's not yours.
That's covered.
Yes. And that can be a rage. And what we're looking at, what I'm really looking at is how am I able to sing a song for God that's superlative and understand where I've been? Because we don't always understand where we've been in our tests and our trials with God. Okay? And some things we go through, it can throw us if you don't put your trust and confidence in God. Because you're telling God that he can't save you. That's what you're telling. I know I can stand it. You're telling God he's not able to save you in your situation, in your failure, in your sin. And what sin that God can't save you from? He can save you from any failure. But we get a little upset, and that's because of our wilderness, our turning away from God because of our sin. And you can turn away from God because you don't believe Him. Okay? And you find yourself being in a jealous situation. Because jealousy, Sister Elena, can be cruel. Was God jealous when he turned over the tables in the temple? Yeah. This is his house. He was jealous. You made my house a den of thieves. And he went in there and had a fit. Wow. Yes. What is that you think? So, we're looking at this episode. Mm-hmm. So he gives you a recommendation as to what to do with your life